Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with Us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts Daniel Quinn and Courtney Staples. On today's episode, longtime listener Kaiser has a new prompt for us. But before we get into that, remember that if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, click the link, follow the instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to come and follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at Let's Worldbuild. If you want to come join us in our Discord chat and chat with us about, World War I, for example, you can do so by following the link in the description. And of course, if you're feeling particularly generous, you can give money to us over on Patreon and gain access to all sorts of sweet Patreon-only goodies, including Discord chats, patron-only episodes, and early access to weekly episodes. Now, with all of the shilling out of the way, let's get back into the prompt. Kaiser, longtime listener, hey buddy, good to see you. Glad that we get your prompts still. They're very fun. The most recent one that we got from Kaiser is, hello, it's Kaiser once more, bringing you a prompt that's really fucked up. This is the land of 1,000 dead men, or hearts of steel, whatever you want to call it. This is a world where it's a simple premise. Why train new soldiers when you can resurrect and reuse the dead ones? Your restrictions are in the tenets section. Tenets. This is a setting with World War I technology. Tenet 2. There is dark magic. And number 3, which I think is like always. So Kaiser typically gives us 2 of the same prompts every time, and the third one is like kind of like the spicy wild card, right? The first tenet is the World War I, which I love. Like I think that it's a fun restriction, both aesthetically and like from a technological standpoint. But the third one, which is the third tenet I'm getting into here, no giant aphids, but dwarfs are fine, which I find so interesting because, like, to me, I'd rather have giant aphids compared to dwarves. But that's just a personal preference, I guess. Anyway,
that's why this is a challenge for us. We have to fit dwarves in potentially.
Well, no. Kaiser said that dwarves were fine, not that they're necessary. And by God,
okay,
if I have to burn a tenet to kill all the dwarves, then I fucking will. Anyway, Courtney, why don't you tell us where you got started with Kaiser's prompt? Again, big thank you to Kaiser for the prompt in general.
Yes, thank you. This is a fun one.
Very
and by
much
fun,
so.
I mean horrible to think about. But
it's just in time for spooky season, so it works out.
That's true. Happy October, everybody.
Yes.
My first one is that the resurrected soldiers maintain all of the memories from their previous lives. And as such, they come back having just experienced their own death as their last memory.
Oh boy. That is, well, see, you think of that as horrifying, which it is. I get that. However, from a military perspective, it's actually quite fascinating because, like, imagine the reconnaissance that you gain from just sending dead people or like sending soldiers into a place that they know that they're going to get destroyed in.
Yeah.
So like, that's actually kind of an interesting way to approach it as well. But it is an interesting kind of approach to these whole. Yeah. Okay. I can dig it.
Though with your comment about the reconnaissance, then that also raises the question of like, what are the limitations of this resurrection? Like, are different sides going to be like mutilating their enemies so that they can't be properly resurrected?
I mean, there's the implications. There's so many implications that we can talk about, and hopefully we have some tenets that will kind of beef that up. And if not, then we'll have some time to talk about it.
I was gonna say, like, the soldiers also become the ones who survive more and more, become more and more valuable too, because they probably will have accrued combat experience or experience as soldiers.
I mean, yeah, the other thing is, right, like, I think this might be a question that we come into later, but like, how would something like rot work exactly? Like, or we have resurrection, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have healing either, right? So if you get a limb blown off, does that mean that you get resurrected sans limb? Or is it like, if you get resurrected and you have a punctured liver, or, like you have to be repaired and patched back up, like how does that work exactly? I feel like that's a really interesting, unexplored kind of area that we can really dive into.
Yeah.
I mean, we can basically make an entire setting that's MASH, but World War I and zombies as well, like there's a lot that we can do with just that simple premise,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, maybe Daniel can help us out with the scope of this. So Daniel, why don't you tell us one of your tenets, please?
So I guess along these lines, this would help. I had whenever a necromancer being whatever the function or person is that does this work, resurrect someone, they carry a piece of the dead man inside them, and that piece is lost to the dead man.
So obviously not physical necessarily, right? We're talking emotionally.
No. I would think either memories or ability or something like that. It could be physical if we want to do something weird, but some aspect of them is lost each time they're resurrected. So like obviously Courtney's tenet is that they're the same. They have a continuous consciousness, it seems, as they're resurrected. But here I'm saying something is lost each time they're brought back.
So I really love that. And here's the thing, Daniel, right? My initial idea was, they just get the last 5 minutes of that person's brain before they died, right? So it kind of lessens the trauma for that person, but it also allows like reconnaissance and stuff like that, so some memory is lost. That's where my brain initially went. But then I said physical, and now I'm thinking of like these like resurrecting necromancers, as you call them, as like just bloated amalgamations of like flesh and like body parts and stuff like that. So it's like maybe you
could be both. I mean, and I would also want it to be something, if it's psychological, something big, like they lose the memory of a loved one, or they lose knowledge of how to use this particular thing. Like it's I don't know if it's random or what it is, but it's going to be significant.
So question for you, is it a power transfer then? So do the necromancers gain that in return?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So what is preventing these necromancers from becoming unbelievably powerful then? Just based on that?
I don't think they know what they're going to get necessarily. And it may not always be something that's useful.
So there's a randomized element to it then.
Yeah. I don't think it's always something that's useful to them anyway.
Okay. That's more interesting. And again, if we were to do it physically, I was just thinking like, that necromancer is half toe. Like he has
maybe they take the scars too.
So like they're a sin eater in that way.
Well, like what you're saying, we want to make them grotesque, right? In some way.
I mean, I don't care. I'm just tossing this out there as like a horrible visual. That's all.
Yeah, but so taking that idea, right? Like, okay, so they inherit something meaningful, right? That may not be physical, but what if, like you were saying, with like both. Someone's arm is blown off? They also take on the last maiming that happened to that person.
I see.
What do you mean by that?
So, like, say they were shot in the head and it blew out one of their eyes. Like, the necromancer then loses that eye.
Huh. Funny that you bring up eyes, because I was going to say the opposite route, where like the things that they take have to do with the senses and like the memories that the soldiers have accrued. So, like, if the necromancer wants access to stuff that the soldier has seen, he takes one of their eyes.
Oh, I like that.
Okay. So it is a sin eater then. They're essentially taking on the damage that the soldier has accrued for themselves, right? That's what you're suggesting, Daniel?
Yeah, I like that conceptually. I wonder if merging it with like Courtney's, maybe they choose what they want, but I don't. It would be nice if, like, in order to gain the knowledge, the thing they need from the last combat, they have to take on the harm too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, could they in the process be gaining psychological harm from doing so? Because if they're suddenly able to like relive this combat experience that they weren't actually in, and like maybe they have to go through it repeatedly to really examine everything and get all the information, so they're getting like severe trauma from that.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, trauma, Courtney, put that on the bingo card. That's been very clear. But I think that what might be interesting is like we might be able to, like, so Daniel, you're interested in this idea that you're inflicting physical harm on the necromancer for resurrecting them. but they're also losing something psychologically. So why don't we have it be a trade-off? It's like, yeah, you can physically come back and you'll be repaired, and the necromancer will take on those wounds, but in return, you'll lose something psychologically precious, and the necromancer will gain that in return.
Oh, I like that.
So it's like, it is a sick devil's bargain type situation, you know?
Yeah.
And then that way it's not like the necromancers are just like there to suffer. I mean, like, which can be interesting. I'm less interested in exploring that kind of thing, because when you have the kind of bargain that we're dealing with, right? Like, imagine a necromancer who comes back without an arm, but has like the love of that person's life. And then they relate, oh, you know, I was Jimmy's best friend. He died in the war. And because Jimmy forgets that love of his life, he's not going to come back, but it gives the necromancer this kind of sleazy in to be like, oh yeah, he told me all about you guys. And then he can recall all these things because he's stolen it from that soldier, you know?
Yeah.
So like there's a weird double-edgedness to it that I really like. And it allows depth, I think, to what we're going with here.
And Courtney, was your tenet the idea that they select an organ or a sense? Is it? Like, what was
that wasn't actually a tenet.
Okay.
That was just an
we were
idea.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure.
We're allowed to have ideas outside of tenets, Daniel. Okay?
No, but I wanted to make sure if it was a tenet that it was being incorporated.
Oh, no. That was just an idea based on like the concept of taking body parts and all that.
Well, then I like what we've talked through then.
Me too.
Great. My first tenet is going to be very simple and does not actually expand upon anything. Not really, anyway. So I initially misread the prompt and thought that this was like more steeped in World War I. I thought it was like a demonstrable World War I kind of like historical revision. So I messed up in that regard. But my tenet is whatever this necromantic dark magic is, like this magic, all magic, is new to this conflict. So it's been basically like a modern-ish world, and then World War I hits, and then suddenly the discovery of dark magic happens, and it kind of changes the world in a lot of ways, which means that like this magic that we're dealing with is still new, and like we're still kind of discovering the nuances and like implications of it.
Okay, so this is like the first major conflict that this magic has been used in.
I'm going to say that this is the first major conflict in which the magic existed at all. That's the tenet.
I see.
There's like a cause and effect to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like the reason I say this is because there's like kind of what Courtney alluded to. There is a parallel between, World War I being the first mechanized, industrialized war, where we have artillery and we have machine guns used on a scale that has never been seen before, which is why in the early days of World War I, the body counts are fucking extraordinary. We're talking like 30 to 50,000 people dying in a single day, in a single battle on one side, and this is why the military tactics were woefully, and especially in France's case, woefully damaging to the armies and countries that were there. Like they had no idea. They were there basically still trying to fight on a battlefield with the idea that this is going to be a Napoleonic war. And World War I was like a punch in the teeth. Like it completely changed everything. And this is what I'm trying to evoke with this kind of dark magic. Like
it parallels this development or arrival of this magic is similar to the arrival of this technology during World War I.
Exactly. Like I want it to be a big deal, and I want it to be like impactful and meaningful in the same way that the arrival of the mechanized industrialized war that is World War I, was impactful and meaningful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes me wonder like how the magic then came about, if it's the result of all of these different, like if we follow the idea of like a world war, if it's the result of all of these different types of magic from different cultures merging into one and being like overused basically. And like that overdrive is what triggers this dark magic resurrection stuff.
I mean, one thing I am rather interested in is, right, like the tenet specifically says dark magic.
Yeah.
Like there is no light magic involved, right? Like I think there's an implication of light magic that I think would be reasonable to assume. But I think what's more interesting is if we only go dark with it, if we only go dark magic angle, you know?
What you're saying, Courtney, is it would be interesting then if maybe this magic that's been developed or is used during this war is the consequence, perhaps you're saying, of lots of previous dark rituals in history. Is that what you're suggesting?
I mean, that certainly could be the case. I was thinking more like it's the consequence of this worldwide conflict. Like when you have suddenly all of these different types of magic interacting from different cultures, like if they all merge together and are being used in like a much greater amount for the purpose of killing than they have in the past, and that like changes it into this dark thing.
I'm bursting at the seams to get this point out because I'm like, oh wow, you just gave me a great idea. Maybe death on this scale is what triggers the magic or what like sparks its creation. Because again, like death on this scale is rare. And so maybe like this is what needs to happen in order for this dark magic to exist is like, hey, it only operates once the threshold of death has reached this level, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
So are we bringing in or excluding the concept of other magics then?
I think it'd be interesting if we only focus on the dark aspect of this magic, but unless you have a tenet that would suggest otherwise, in which case I'm open to the idea. But I think it would be a fun restriction for us to only restrict our thoughts and thinking to dark magic.
As in like no other magic has existed before at all?
Or yeah, for example, right?
I gotcha.
Again, the idea that it is dark magic implies that light magic exists. However, for this purpose, I think it'd be kind of fun as a restriction to ourselves. Again, I'm open. If you guys have tenets that rely on it, I'm not dying on this hill. Like that's not.
No, I don't have tenets based on that. But I mean, we could just say like, if there was magic before, it's been converted into this because of all that mass death. If we want to go that route.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with that too. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think historically, like where mass death on a scale of like 30,000 plus people has happened. And it's like, it's fairly rare historically, right? Like I'm thinking of the bloody river of Verdun, where it's like 3,000 to 10,000 pagans got executed and their blood literally stained the river, you know, like stuff like that. Like, so, but like, I think that when I think about it, right, 3 to 10,000 is, or like you go back to the Crusades or you go back to like warfare of like a mass scale, we don't see that number though. And I think that's what interests me is this idea that that's why it's new, is that modern technology allowed for, you know, the thriving of our species to the point where we can get to 30,000 people, you know, dead in a day. And that's like devastating, but not, you know, like crazy. But like that's the threshold that this magic needs to operate at. And what I think is more interesting about that as well is that like it thrives on death. And so if you want to become a necromancer, you have to also become a massive warmonger. You have to be someone who is like this magic only exists when war exists, which I think is also an interesting point that we can kind of explore as well.
Is this setting the Earth? Is this an alternate history setting, or is this a separate reality?
Again, I mistook the prompt for World War I, like for like Earth's World War I. However, none of my tenets rely on that being true. But I am thinking of World War I strongly in my mind as, you know, I think about the tenets and as I kind of explore them. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, I didn't have any tenets that depend on it. My second one would certainly make it more interesting if it's actual Earth with humans, because my second tenet is that the primary or one of the primary sentient species in this world are cold-blooded reptilians.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
They're reptile people.
Quick aside. Excellent segue, Courtney. Just wanted to praise you on that. So, okay, Courtney. So what I'm hearing is there's no difference between this setting and regular Earth, if we're believing the conspiracies to be true.
I mean, we could go in that direction if we've got reptilians controlling stuff.
I mean, they're here to terraform us. I need to make this disclaimer every time because some people get it wrong. This is a joke. This is a conspiracy theory. Reptilians do not actually exist. It is just a fun fleet of fancy.
As far as we know.
Yes. However, we're not claiming the very anti-Semitic conspiracy theories to be true. It is just a fun goof thing. We're not even bringing that element into it. I just want to clarify that for the love of God. Anyway,
yes,
let's continue on with your lizard folk, Courtney.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could take it in that route where this is actual Earth and there are secret reptilians, or we could go into like a more fantasy type realm where there's like different fantasy races and reptilians happen to be one of them. I was mainly interested in like the sort of world building implications of having a species that needs like heat to kind of thrive.
Interesting. Okay, I'm okay with that.
This is why I was asking, like, what's the actual context of the setting? So we're at a point we have to make a decision. Like, is this alternate history? Is this a fantasy realm? Like, in order to proceed from here, we have to decide that. I think there's ways to interpret the lizard people. You could have humanoids who are cold-blooded, and maybe that's the primary race. I don't know what that means for the world.
Maybe that's the resurrected soldiers that they become cold-blooded as a result. Yeah.
It depends on what are we feeling. Do we want to lean towards alternate history? Do we want to lean more towards fantasy or science fiction? Like, where are we going? That's the question. Like, I'm leaning more towards the real world only because of the grittiness of it. But I'm open to the concept.
I have obviously come out as pro history, so I'm okay with like a weird worldwide thing. So like I'm okay with the concept and the magic, obviously, but like I would obviously prefer a more grounded setting to kind of explore because I think that's thematically more what I'm interested in.
You could split the difference.
I agree.
And say that this is essentially like a Earth-like setting that's in a world war-ish state of technology, but it's not exactly Earth's history. That way we have more room, and then just parallel things to World War I. That would enable us to have like the lizard people. Another way of doing it is it's like Earth. It has a similar history, but they're not literally lizards. They're lizard-like, and that they have cold blood. I don't know. How do we want to deal with that?
I think I'd be happy either way, personally.
I'm having a hard time deciding too. As far as like the alt history does sound appealing, but I also would hesitate to like limit ourselves too much to actual Earth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Do we have all of our tenants out? Maybe that will help. And
no, Daniel, you still have to go, and I have to go.
Yeah.
So
this may help because I have that the war has been going on so long that no one knows why they're fighting or when it began.
I mean, that absolutely makes sense considering that
the death toll,
the death toll, but also like the resurrection, but also like part of what makes war so devastating is the loss of life, right? Like, or you need enemies to fight. Like that's part of how it works, right? Like part of war is decimating the opponent until there's no one else to fight, or a strain on the resource becomes so great that it breaks morale or the economics of the whole system breaks down, right? Like that's what happened to Germany both times, where they essentially were not able to feed themselves. They feed their citizens, and they weren't able to produce enough to kind of keep that going. I don't know why I was going off on this tangent, but man, I just love history. I think, the whole implication, right? But yeah, the fact that the war has been going on so long is really interesting, and is also, it's a bleak world if that is the case.
Yeah. There's also the point that you raised, Rob, earlier about like the idea that if dark magic is sort of formed by this mass devastation, and that necromancers would want to hold on to that and keep the wars going for that reason. Like it's sort of a parallel to like the military industrial complex, the idea that if you just keep churning out weapons, you can keep profiting from that, and just the cycle continues and continues.
Yeah, I think we can work with that. Again, we're definitely teetering on the brink of apocalypse now, though, because not the movie apocalypse now, but the apocalypse. Okay.
So lizard people.
Yeah, let's go back to that actually, because like, okay, I'm very curious because there's one of two ways that we can kind of approach this, right? I'm thinking that if we approach this as there are parallels historically, it basically means that we're taking a bunch of fantasy races and we're using them as placeholders for France, Germany, England, America, stuff like that, right? So if we have humans, they'll be American or they'll be, like French or whatever. If we have Germans, they will be werewolf people or lizard people, et cetera, et cetera. Like that's one way that we can kind of approach it, where each country in this massive world war is going to be represented by a fantastical race. The other alternative is kind of what we were going at, which was use the fantastical elements and then explain them in an occult fashion. We have lizard people. They are, in fact, cold-blooded animals, but we can have them be, either actual cold-blooded like reptilians, like an alien species, or we can have them be humans affected by the magic. But either way, in that particular scenario, like the core of history, of human history, is still kind of maintained. Between those two options, what do you think is more interesting, narratively speaking?
I'm not interested personally in trying to map the setting to specifics of World War I or the world in its state then. Only because I feel like it's going to shackle us. Although I had a thought when you're talking about we could have the race of lizard people be the necromancers, and they impart a reptilian aspect to the resurrected soldiers. If we want to keep kind of the rest of the world human, as opposed to inviting a bunch of fantasy races. I don't know why the necromancers are lizard people, but they could be more literally lizard-like. Because lizards have the capacity to like regrow limbs and
that's true. Yeah.
Like they have those aspects to them, and then they would be cold-blooded. They're imparting the cold-bloodedness to the soldiers.
That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, I like that idea.
It would parallel kind of the conspiracy theory realm of things, because they're working in the shadows, sort of potentially.
Right. Yeah. Like what's worse is that like the world governments are being forced to work with these lizard people because look, they don't want their soldiers dead because they need them. And so, yeah, we'll allow you to resurrect them. But then it's like, what do you actually like? Is this a thing where a couple generations from now we'll have like, an entire country that's in thrall to these lizard necromancer type people? Like that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I do like the idea that they're changing the humans in some way or are themselves being changed by the magic that they're practicing. Like since this war has been going on for seemingly infinite amounts of time based on their history, like maybe they did start out as humans, but because they've been using this necromancy magic constantly, they've warped themselves into like legit lizard people, and they're slowly doing so with the soldiers as well.
I think the implication that we need to talk about here as well is this idea of the infinite war. This idea that like, because infinite war, like the toll of war is so huge. So to have an infinite war is essentially to have like an apocalypse, right? Like it's a never ending apocalypse. And the other thing to that is that war takes up a ton of resources, not just, like to feed people, but to move people and to also like produce weapons of war. So like you're also creating this society, which is essentially consistently enslaved to manufacturing, enslaved to the production of goods, of supporting a war. And there is something interesting that I think we can explore there, because it's like, this is mindless production. It's mindless war productions. Like no one even believes or understands where the lines are anymore, but they're also terrified of having themselves be wiped out, that they give themselves to the war machine.
Yeah. Yeah, it does make me wonder like what the non-soldiers are going through, like just the people back home.
Yeah.
The families, like are people even going to want to have children after a certain point if the only future is war and nothing else?
I'm so glad you asked, Courtney. Here's where my brain went with it.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, the Germans, this is World War II, they had camps or like cabins where it was basically forced procreation. Like if you had Aryan traits, you and others were forced to go and have sex and essentially try and repopulate the Aryan population. It's horrifying. Like it is really, really terrifying stuff, because it's like you're losing the autonomy of your body. And especially as a woman, like, good Lord, that's doubly terrifying, triply terrifying, really.
Yeah, that is.
So that I can see is absolutely being a thing. And this also raises the question of egalitarianism in terms of militarism, right? Like, if this is a never-ending war, like, who's going to be the first one to be like, you know what, women can be soldiers. Fuck it. Like, let's get them in there, you know?
Or children, or...
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like 1984, where the war is just an illusion. It's an endless thing to keep control. So I have a feeling that I don't know what the goals of these lizard people are, as is the case with our actual fictional lizard people. But clearly,
our real life fictional lizard people.
Yeah. But they may be working towards something. I don't know if that's a goal that's subversive to the humans who are conducting these wars, or whether it's in concert with them. But it seems to me like this war, we're establishing this war has been kept going for an ulterior motive. And I have a feeling it has something to do with, and because they want to inherit things from their dead. So it may be that the lizard people don't really care about the conflict among the humans. They're looking for something from the humans.
Oh, that's interesting.
That is
very interesting. Okay.
I mean, and trying to get back to what you were saying, though, is, and I think like what's happening to people at home, like, they might be casualty to this in a sense, and they might live under a very propagandistic society that supports and promotes the war as achieving some end from the perspective of each country or whoever's involved.
The other thing that I'm curious about is, like, how many nations have rebelled against their leaders, you know, in order to try and stop the war, you know, like, how does that work exactly? And also, like, how fucked up do you have to be in order, because casualties have to exist, right? Like, you can be resurrected, but you're eventually going to get in this. We didn't even talk about mutilation yet of the corpses, of the bodies. Like, that is something that I think Courtney brought it up, obviously, like from early on, that I think we need to talk about, like, because if these necro-lizards like resurrect people is to like take on the damage that they took before death, then what happens to a body that's pulp? What happens to a body that's been burnt to ash or atomized, right? So that is actually a way that we can create genuine casualties, I think, right?
Yeah, so the stakes just keep getting higher. The violence becomes more extreme as you go on.
Right. And suddenly war crimes are just how you do business in war. It's like, hey, the only way that we can make sure they don't come back, you know, like it becomes dehumanizing, like even more so than how war normally is. Right. Like, yeah. Okay. That's fucked up. That's great.
Well, it would seem that like whatever power these lizards have, this dark, quote unquote, dark magic, it seems regenerative because that's what lizards do. So I imagine like if you totally vaporize someone, there's nothing for them to regenerate, but it's like a Wolverine situation. If you have something to work with, maybe you can bring them back, but maybe the degree to which they can be restored, it varies. Like if I've been reduced to ash and some bones, maybe I can't really be brought back. But if I'm like a hunk of smoldering flesh, I can probably bring you back, but maybe you're not going to be quite right, you know?
Or maybe like the more regeneration that needs to occur, the more reptilian
is lost,
you become. Yeah. And the less human, the more reptilian your transformation
the more and that's how they reproduce. They don't have the ability to reproduce sexually.
That's what
they need to have, and this is why they encourage the war to go on forever.
And that's the exchange too. Like absolutely. I still think they have a larger goal. I mean, I don't know if it's to supplant the human race, but I feel like their process, if this is reproduction, like they must have another goal on top of that. You know, like maybe make more of us and then something else. Right?
Wouldn't it just be survival though? Like if the only
I
way
think
that
they're craftier than that.
Well, I mean, think about it. If the only way they're able to reproduce is through this kind of like supplanting of the human species, then their only option in terms of like reproduction is to continue this war, is to make sure that it continues on, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the overriding like thing that's happening, but I think there's probably a twist or a hidden level of what they're doing that we're not fully understanding. You know, like
can we shelve that for the actual twist that we roll?
Yeah, I think like there's some other step that we're not aware of that they're up to. Yeah.
So let's absolutely keep that in the back pocket, and we'll pull that when we do the twist proper.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Yeah, like my thought went to like blood for the blood god. They're like doing sacrifices to like summon something much greater that we don't know.
How is that not a twist? I'm adding that to the twist list.
There we go.
Right
New
now.
twist.
I don't even know what it means, but yeah, fuck it. That's on the twist list.
You asked about the countries. I'm the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking about for a war that's going on this long. The more I'm thinking that the individual statehood must have been either dissolved or it has to have been turned into something that serves a political purpose. So like in 1984, these countries, they don't really exist. They're fictions that have been created by really a single government that's warring with itself to keep things going forever. I have a feeling this world's landscape has been changed so much that you can't really trust that there are real reasons why these countries are fighting each other or that they really are countries at all. And I wonder if we're talking about what the story will be, if you're going to write a story or have a game in it, right? Like I imagine it's at a very low level at that of the soldiers or that of maybe a single politician, and they don't have a full understanding of the whole situation. So those are questions we may not have to answer. We just have to know it's really messy and there's a lot of propaganda behind it, you know?
Thematically, I think it's appropriate to add in like paranoia or, you know, like some kind of like, I don't think mystery is adequate because mystery implies that there's something to uncover. This is like more obfuscation. This is more like deliberate, intentional, like obfuscation. I don't know what else to call it. Misinformation, hiding information, whatever. I'm not smart. I'm not a smart man.
Are the leaders of these wars and the human side even aware of the lizard people? Like, what is the level of knowledge between these two groups?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I've been picturing them as like legit lizard people, but if they're like secret, then I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or it could be like a V situation, like the sci-fi miniseries V, where it's like they look human and then they pull their fucking skin off and they're reptiles. Spoilers for a 1970s sci-fi show called V, by the way. Apologies to everyone who was not going to watch it and going to get mad over it anyway.
Didn't they remake it recently? I thought there was.
Really?
I thought there was like a more recent one called V, but maybe I'm wrong.
I only know of the one from the 70s.
Isn't the girl from Serenity's in it, right?
Yeah, the Firefly lady.
She's a girl,
Why would I know Firefly? You know I don't watch that show.
Oh, God.
Well, it's only a few episodes.
And? Like, I'm not going to waste my time.
You gotta watch it. That show is so good.
Daniel, fuck off with what I gotta watch. You know how many things I've been trying to get you to watch?
I just watched Severance.
You did,
yeah, but I'm talking about the other stuff that I know you're never gonna watch.
Like what? I'm working my list. I got to Severance.
I've got a bunch of stuff on that list. How's Columbo coming along,
Columbo,
Daniel?
That one you said to have watched episodes here and there, not the whole thing.
Have you watched an episode?
Yeah, I watched an episode with you actually a long time ago.
This sounds like a lie. This sounds like a falsehood and a
deliberate.
Way back.
I thought we all watched it together.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't count because I made you do it. I'm just tossing that.
Basically, I'm listening.
What haven't I watched that you've suggested, Daniel?
I don't know.
Firefly, apparently.
Yeah, Firefly.
Oh, yeah. Okay, new thing. Okay, you know what? I'll give you one for free. You know what I haven't watched, even though you've recommended it multiple times? Yeah. Raised by Wolves. And you know
that's
what?
Right. Well, that's not your jam, though. I understand that. Like, it's really weird sci-fi stuff. I don't think you'd be into that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And I want to give you something that you would love, that I would love, like Mummy-esque, because we both love that.
Okay, but you do think that I would like Firefly, is what you're telling me.
I think if at first I didn't like it, but then you got to let it happen because I think you like it. I think it's like, did you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
I did.
Okay, I think you like it. Yeah.
Kinda.
It's not sci-fi so much as it a Western that happens to be in sci-fi.
I get that. And that actually, that is kind of what annoyed me when I tried to watch it the first time.
Me too. At first I was like, I don't want to watch a Western, but then I'm like, this is one of those shows.
I like Westerns, but I was just like, Space Horse. Like,
it's hilarious.
And I'm like, this is fucking dumb. Like,
it makes no sense sometimes, but it's great.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, I actively mocked it when I watched it.
You got it.
Much to Courtney's chagrin, because she's the one who made me watch it.
Yeah. Didn't I try to like watch an episode with you, and you were just like shitting on it the whole time?
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
Because it shows about the crew. Like once you get to that crew, then it's like everything.
It's very character.
Right. Once I get 30 hours in, then it's good. Okay.
30 hours into this 10-hour series.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was just remarking about video games, like how the game gets really good once you're 30 hours into it.
Oh yeah, I just don't even play those games anymore.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to ask.
Weak coward. Okay, we need to get to a recap so we can roll the twist, because we need to get through this. We still have other stuff to do, Daniel.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Let's get back into it. Let's digression over. Let's go ahead and recap our tenets. Courtney, you started us off this time. Why don't you tell us what your first tenet was and whether or not we satisfied you?
Yep.
I mean, the tenant. Satisfy the tenant, not you.
Mine was that the resurrected soldiers keep their memories from their previous lives, so they sort of come back having just experienced their own death. And I think we talked about that in terms of like how it'd be useful for reconnaissance, and then the implications of like our bodies just being completely obliterated in order to prevent that from happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think that's good. Daniel, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we covered that one. That's like essential to how it functions.
I agree with that. Okay. Speaking of Daniel, what was your first tenet, sir?
That when necromancers resurrect someone, they carry a piece of the dead with them, and the piece is lost.
Mm-hmm. And that absolutely tracks with, and we've made that essential to what we're talking about as well.
To lizard people.
Sure. My first tenet was the magic. The dark magic that's in the tenets are new. They started with the onset of this World War I event.
Yeah, I think that's because it's the lizard people, right?
Right. I think that we could reconcile that a little bit, just in terms of like,
yeah, why did they come out now?
Right, exactly.
Because we were talking about like the mass death and like Like maybe that's part of the whole like blood for the blood god thing that I was talking about. Like this mass amount of death made it so that they could come out of the earth or something. I don't know.
Or just awakens them in some way.
Right. Yeah. They like hatch from their eggs.
I see them as being in the earth too. No, like what if, because you're focusing on the cold-blooded aspect of it, right? Like they don't want sunlight. Maybe like this mass war stuff has created sort of like a matrix situation where like some of the light of the sun is blocked out from all the explosions and stuff. Or smog, I guess, like the industrialization caused by the war. And that's what enables the lizards to come out, because they smell that and the stench of death.
Or, I mean, cold-blooded is kind of the opposite, where they want heat sources.
Yeah.
They need heat sources.
Maybe it's like the heat of, maybe it's the heat of like war itself and like the industrial stuff that comes from it. And
the greenhouse effect we've accomplished.
Again, we're just veering back directly into conspiracy theory again, but I'm okay with that, honestly.
Well, so if they need heat, same stuff from the war, the industrialization, greenhouse effect draws them out.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that works. And maybe they absorb the heat from the bodies that they resurrect as well. Or something. I don't know.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, I can support that. Whatever. Okay. Let's keep it moving. Back to Courtney. What was your second tenet?
That they were reptilians. That there are reptilians on this earth that are cold-blooded.
Oh, look at that.
So we
immediately talked about the reptilians. How about that? Yeah. Well, no, because we didn't name it Courtney. That was just whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so reptilians, big part. Check. Daniel, second one. What was yours?
Okay, one more thing. I can vision a scene of like blood from the war trickling down into the earth and like seeping through, and then like drip drop into this underground cavern, and then like one of those, what is it called, like nictating eye thingies, the little sleeve on a reptilian eye hits the eye, it opens up, and then like they're awakening, so there you got your blood god sacrifice.
Did you watch the 2000 Godzilla movie recently, Daniel? I feel like that's a scene directly taken out of that.
I have not
maybe a Jurassic Park or something like that.
Probably an eon ago. Is that the one with what's his name in it for like 5 minutes?
Matthew
from Breaking Bad?
No. This is the one from literally 2000. It's the one that has Matthew Broderick.
Oh, what's the one with the Breaking Bad guy?
Oh, Bryan Cranston.
That's the more recent remake. That's like 2010, 2018, something like that.
Yeah, no. I was just visualizing Blood Cavern.
Okay.
For Courtney.
I mean, Courtney's on the podcast.
I'm all for
that's fair.
Blood Caverns. Yeah.
Courtney loves blood caves. Let me tell you,
my favorite.
Just dripping on down.
Can you have a stalactite made out of coagulated blood?
Yes.
Is that a thing?
That's what's dripping onto the lizard's eye to wake it up.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's like the altar that they're creating underneath the earth. Is this coagulated blood?
Blood coagulated chamber.
This is dumb as fuck, and I'm kind of here for it right now.
So your question was my other one. The war's been going on for so long that nobody knows where it started or why.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that works. And we didn't even do my tenet. I realized.
What are your tenets?
No, it's fine. Mine was more thematic, so it was fine. And honestly, I think the reason that I didn't bring it up is because we've been doing it. I just wanted this to be like more horror inspired. Like we've got war, we've got bleakness. Like it's whatever. That. Like it's like it's not even a tenet at this point.
I mean, picturing like someone being resurrected as having put in a lizard sack and then like emerging from it, their remnants like bursting out of this lizard egg. Like it's pretty grotesque.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, I just had spooky season in mind, and I didn't, I mean, I should have known considering Courtney was on the podcast, but like, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't like making it light or lighthearted or goofy or.
It's a very happy setting that we're dealing with here.
Exactly.
Wait, we didn't put the dwarves in here. So where's the dwarves?
No. This is a trap. This isn't trap.
They're in the blood cavern.
Yeah, I was going to say they're the underground lizard people.
No,
they're the heroes. They come to save the world.
My second tenet, guys. I'm sorry, I misspoke. My second tenet was there are no dwarves in the setting. Okay. Right. Sorry, I misspoke. That's on me, guys. That's
the blood dwarves. They carry the true blood of the righteous.
No, remember we have a policy on the podcast where we don't completely negate the other person's tenet. And Daniel, I feel like you're trying to do that right now, and I just don't think that's
Please send us more prompts that specifically require dwarves.
Courtney, cut that out when you edit the podcast. That'd be great. Anyway, let's move on to the twist. I feel like we've done well in terms of satisfying everything right now.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and roll the die and see what twist we get. Current top contenders are now make everything cute.
What's your god?
Yeah. Making everything anime. We could do that one.
Please, Jesus.
Daniel's just going to like quit the podcast.
Just quit. Rage quit.
All right, and the twist is okay. Now remove some blood sacrifice.
Son of a bitch.
AKA make it nicer.
This is a bullshit twist.
This is abuse. They're like considering what this fucking
I feel attacked.
Yeah.
I feel attacked.
I am thrilled to see how we make this very bleak, very blood-soaked setting demonstrably less bloody. Like, how do we reconcile this? For the love of God,
you need heroes.
No, we don't.
That's how you make it less bloody. You need people who can take the blood away, who can take, and by that I mean metaphorically, they can cause less bloodshed, right? And that has to be heroes.
So we need like some sort of clerics or like healer types.
Or, I mean,
aren't necromancers.
Not literally. It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, you could add superheroes to this. It needs to be people who can counteract the endless blood rituals that are occurring with these lizard people. Someone who sees the big picture, right, knows what they're up to, and is trying to stop them.
Robots can't be sacrificed for their blood,
right.
and they can't be turned into reptiles.
Okay,
so.
we can't go goofy as fuck with this. Okay.
Oh, well, we have the World War I restriction though. We can't do that.
Yeah, I know. They'd be very primitive constructs.
Yeah, right. And also, like, let's not spitefully ruin the entire theme and setting of the setting that we've created here, right? Like, let's like remove just a little bit of the blood sacrifice, just a little bit of it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we need something that can curtail the bloodshed.
Hope, like you said. Yeah. We need hope in the setting, is what we need.
Right.
Yeah,
just absolutely. A little bit, not a lot though.
Right. Not too much.
Not too much.
We want the illusion of hope, not actual hope.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm okay with that. Because you know what? There's propaganda in every war. And there's figures like Captain America. There's figures like Uncle Sam. You know, like there's the patriotic idealization, you know, that good stuff. I don't want to get into the German propaganda because, boy, that's bad. But it existed, right? So yeah, what do we have for war heroes? What do we have for like hope in this setting? Good question, Daniel. Courtney, I'm going to make you squirm and answer this question. Give us a hero. Give us some hope, Courtney. This twist is literally aimed specifically at you, so please.
Well, the one thought that comes to mind, literally just the one thought, because my mind is blank right now trying to figure this out, is a nurse type figure who's able to restore without the necromancy, perhaps through like actual medical technology. Maybe like scientists who are working on technology so that they're less dependent on the necromancers.
How about just people who are working to restore the humanity of the soldiers who were resurrected?
Yeah.
So like treating the reptilian replacement as a disease and then being able to treat it effectively.
Interesting.
To like reverse their reptilianness.
Right, because when they get resurrected, they also come back as colder and more cold-blooded, right? So why not have it in, because people are going to look at that and be like, wait a minute, that needs to change. That needs to not happen. And we need to restore humanity. So all of a sudden there's a big scientific medical boom to try and restore people back to themselves.
It would be interesting too if those who are healed in this way cannot be resurrected.
Oh, that's good. That's a good caveat to add to it.
Yeah.
Because then you're making a choice. You know, do you want your humanity or do you want to live forever? Or do like how? What, yeah, and that is an interesting moral choice as well.
That is, yeah.
Maybe it's an inoculation you take. Like maybe you can, you know, like, oh, if you take this, you can make the choice. Take this drug and you won't be able to be resurrected, but you'll keep your humanity. Don't take this drug and you'll be immortal, but you'll be a lizard person.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
I would like to, if perhaps there's a lizard co-conspirator, just so that the lizards aren't just universally evil. And perhaps the co-conspirator gives some information as to what they're really doing, and they think that that's also bad for themselves.
And they donate their own blood as like kind of control sample to try and
to test with. Yeah.
And ironically, the hero now becomes that lizard person, right? Like that who they don't believe in what their species is doing and stuff like that. Yeah, that works.
Or it could be in the heroes group, you know.
That's what I mean. Like they're a hero now for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the lizard people shape changers?
I thought we had like solidly stuck with the V concept and we gave so much lip service to it, but
like they're wearing the skin. So humans exactly. Yeah.
So I wonder what it is that would make even a lizard person question their overall process.
Maybe they were a necromancer who maybe they resurrected people so much that they eventually like got hit with a wave of empathy. They got hit with this wave of love, you know, like maybe there's something that is beyond the basic brain of the lizard person that they now understand, you know, like maybe, it's like a Spock thing. It's like a Spock thing where it's like, oh, they're not in control of their, or they see emotions as like kind of this enemy to be conquered. And this one's like, nah, emotions are good though. Like we should have emotions sometimes, you know, that kind of thing.
Maybe this one was like especially prone to taking the good memories from the people they resurrected.
Oh,
and like,
so it's
which is like kind of fucked up in itself. It started off as a selfish thing, like, oh, this like feels good, I'm gonna keep doing it even though it's fucking over these people. But then over time it was like, oh wow, they have like these amazing lived experiences that I've never had before. Like we should try to preserve that.
That's fun. That's really fun.
They're like an anti-necromancer.
Yeah, I dig that. Yeah. Great. Yeah, this is good. I suppose we have to create a faction now, right? We're getting towards the end. What do we got for a faction?
I mean, it kind of like started to create one with like the scientist medical group that we talked about.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that we haven't talked about? So I think the one major question that I have is why the war hasn't ended. And I think that the easy answer is lizard folk intervention, right? Like manipulation. Is that something that we're okay with just kind of hand waving?
Yeah, I think that they have manipulated our own culture to continue this war forever.
Yeah, I think there's probably something too about like immortality is such a tempting idea that it's sort of easy to manipulate the populace towards that.
Yeah, I think that given the choice, like if you took a serum that allowed you to be immortal, but you know, you lost your emotions, or the other one is you just continue to be a person, like most people would probably take the immortal one, right? Or like it'd probably be 50-50. I don't know. I think
I'm sure it would be a really tough choice. Like, I mean, I would probably have to think about it.
And there's propaganda behind it as well, you know.
True.
So it's probably not being described in a way that's anything close to what they're actually doing.
Yeah, like it's more framed as like you're gonna be stronger after you're resurrected, and like keep fighting the good fight because you'll be like a super soldier.
I'm imagining like propaganda posters of like say no to the vaccine, you know, fight for your country, you know, like that kind of thing. Yeah. Oh man. And the idea that vaccine, quote unquote, is like, you know, like not government sanctioned is also kind of interesting as well, you know.
It's the ragtag group of rebels that are doing this, you know.
Right.
I mean, it becomes a prick of doom. It becomes like literally like you will die if you get this vaccine. Like that's what happens.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true.
Wow.
But they end up being the only ones who can truly fight the lizards. Ultimately, you know.
So what happens if someone injects that into a lizard person?
It kills them.
Ooh.
I feel like that's too easy.
Does it start to like turn them back to human?
Maybe it just turns off their regeneration.
Yeah.
They weaken them.
Yeah. So it's like, because they rely, when they resurrect the soldiers, they rely on their regeneration to make sure that they can take on whatever is going on, right? So
they should also fix their form.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it unveils them. We need something that unveils them as lizard people. And that's the serum does that. Yeah.
It makes them unable to regenerate and they can't shapeshift.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I like the idea that that's the only way that you'd be able to kill them is by injecting them, and then they become susceptible to injury.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Okay, that's dope. And now in talking about this, we have now created, or we've expanded upon Courtney's ragtag group of hospitalers or doctors and medical. Hospitaler is a real word, by the way. Fuck off.
Is it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Google it. Google it live on the podcast. Don't cut this. No, you cut this, Courtney. You don't hide your shame.
Huh. It is. It is a member of a charitable religious order.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Courtney. Yep.
Good to know.
You don't cut this. This doesn't get cut.
Yeah, I'm fine. It's staying. Won't cut it.
Anyway. So main story quest, I think we literally just did everything all in a shot, right? Like, we just fucking nailed it, like easily.
In a shot, like a vaccine.
Courtney, it's so fucking funny. Oh my god.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good. Is there anything else that we literally created the main storyline quest. We're trying to give them hope. Question though, right? Question. How do we, because there's too much hope now. I feel like I know that we gave them the shot, like the possibility of it. Again, yes, shot. Thank you. Good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How do we now take it away from them? How do we make it so it's even harder? How do we make it so this group, you know, like while there is a chance that they do this thing, I really want to stack the deck to make sure that this isn't a complete happy hero ending. Like I want it to be a little bit bleaker than what we currently have.
I mean, you're dealing with a 1984 society, so the existence of this thing is never enough. Mm-hmm. Like people don't believe in this thing, and they're conditioned not to believe in it.
Sure. Like, lean heavy on the propaganda. Yeah.
Like 5 people to 100 people are nothing in the face of this super state, you know, like whatever progress they can achieve would be tiny steps in a year that's been going on for hundreds of years, or a war that's been going on for hundreds of years.
Right. And like, I imagine too that the bulk of the lizard people are now aware of this one defector and are probably like watching him closely to see what he does and monitoring the progress on this vaccine. And they're basically ready to just swoop in at the last second and crush this group.
And who is to say you can trust the lizard, the good one, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that how we do it? It's a rug pull where it's like, yeah, I was actually a double agent the whole time. Like, get fucked.
It could have even been like a well-meaning one, but he's just so closely observed that he's being completely used to root out this group. And he just doesn't realize it, that he's like the key to the lizard people finding out this rebellious group and killing it.
Okay, and again, we often bring this back to like a prestige television show, right? Okay, so this is what would happen. Season 1 set up the series. Season 2 introduce. The end of season 1 is where the lizard person is like, "Look, I'm going to help you."
Right?
Yeah.
And then
a shocking reveal at the end of season. The lizard person's actually good.
Exactly. That's season 1. Season 2, the lizard person is working together, and then, you know, like they're showing genuine growth and there's a genuine chance. And then season 3, they introduce some new characters because they're gaining new ground and like we're starting to win the war, like the hypothetical war. And then at the end of season 3 is where the betrayer is revealed. And then you unveil everything from seasons 1 and 2. There we go. Yeah. Okay. And obviously we get canceled mid-season 2 because of bad ratings, but
or fantastic ratings, but Netflix's bizarre, incomprehensible algorithm just decides to cancel it.
Exactly. It's too expensive and it doesn't make any sense. And also there's not enough 80s nostalgia in it.
So otherwise known as Raised by Wolves.
Or what HBO is doing even now with stuff. It's like, this season's completely like done. It's like 95% ready to go. Nah, we'll just cancel that. It's
not
fine.
Only are you going to cancel that, you're going to burn any footage. And no. That's not enough. Magnets to the hard drives and the cameras and then destroy those hard drives and cameras. Just to be sure.
Yep.
Yeah. This will not stand. Okay. I feel like we've wrapped everything up. I'm very excited about this particular setting. I think it's notably bleak.
It's very bleak, yeah.
Yeah. I think we're good. A big thank you to Kaiser for this particular setting suggestion. And of course, if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com. Click the link, follow the instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. Social media, Twitter, Let's World Build. You know where to find us. Discord, you know what? We got the Discord. Come chat with us. Talk to us about World War I. Talk to us about settings, about world building. If you have thoughts, ideas, suggestions, if you need advice, we're here to help you. We're here to chat with you about all sorts of cool stuff. And of course, if you're feeling particularly generous, you can always give us money over on Patreon. You can go to our Patreon, get access to sweet, sweet Patreon-only episodes, early access to episodes weekly, patron-only Discord. That's a good thing. I love our patron-only Discord too. I love chatting with those people. They're great. And whatever. You don't have to. If you want to give us money, that's great. If not, don't worry about it. Continue to listen to us. We'll love you either way. With all that being said, that's going to do it for this episode of World Build with Us. Remember that we love you very much, and we're going to get through this together. Until next week.